Today is March 1st, 2021. Torah portion is Tisa or Tisa, depending on how you pronounce it. And we are ready to roll. I'm going to share my screen and we're going to jump right in. We got some big drama this week, like really big drama in the Torah, as we will see together. All right, let's start. This is chapter 30 of Exodus, verse number 11. And this is how it rolls. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, when you take the sum of the children of Israel according to their numbers, let each one give to the Lord an atonement for his soul when they are counted. Then there will be no plague among them when they are counted. Now, okay, so there's a few different mitzvot that are captured in that one verse, verse 12. Number one, please take the sum of the children of Israel. In other words, I want you to do a census, take a count, right? That's the first mitzvah. The second one is when you do the count, the census, how do you count them? Shekel. Each one should give, yes, exactly, a half a shekel, right? Each one should give a half a shekel, which we'll see in a moment in the next verse, but each one should give an atonement for his soul when they are counted. So it's going to be by giving a contribution or a donation. I mean, it's a very small amount, but giving something that's also going to be an atonement for the soul. That is what you will count. You will not count the people. You're going to count their contributions. And then it says, if you do it that way, there will be no plague among them when they are counted, which implies, as we already know now, as we saw last week with the priestly garments, if you wear the garments, then you won't die. The implication being, well, the opposite. The same thing over here. If you count the Jewish people by the amount that they're by the coins that they're giving, and not directly, then there won't be a plague, which implies that if you do count directly, it might be dangerous. The truth is, later on in Jewish history, King David counted the people, and there was a plague through that direct counting, which is why even till today in synagogues, when you're counting for a minyan, I'm going to stop sharing for a moment so I can see everybody bigger. Right. When you count for a minyan, you don't say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You don't count. So you say either. Not one, not two, not three, not four, which may sound completely bizarre, but the point is that you're not counting. You're literally not counting. You are, not that you're saying that they're not one, but it's you're kind of counting off, but you're saying not. In other words, we're not counting you, we're just counting numbers. Another way to do it, which is probably even cleaner, is reciting a verse that has 10 words. So Hoshia es amecha ovarech es nachlasecha urim v'naseh mad olam. That is a verse that has 10 words. And so if you're counting for a minyan, Hoshia es amecha ovarech es nachlasecha urim v'naseh mad olam. And then you go, oh, we have 10. Depending on how many words you're missing from that verse, you know how many you're lacking. But the point is that in ancient times, God tells the people, God tells the leadership, God tells Moses, don't count directly because that could bring a plague. What's the plague? Essentially, what we're talking about here is the evil eye. And this is a concept that we've talked about before. That's a little bit mystical, a little interesting, maybe sounds sometimes a little fringe, but it is literally what's at the heart of this conversation, the idea of the ayin hara, the evil eye, when you're counting in a direct fashion. Let's see if we have a Rashi on this. There will be no plague, Rashi says. Survey says, Rashi says, for the evil eye has no power over numbered things. I'm sorry. For the evil eye has power over numbered things. And pestilence comes upon them, as we find in David's time, as I mentioned before. What does that mean? The evil eye has power over numbered things. When you're counting something and it's a large number, suddenly the dark forces, the negative energy can hook onto that. So in this case, we don't want to count people because that could arouse a negative, what's the word I'm looking for? Energy, negative vibes. You don't want any negative vibes. You don't count people, you count the coins, which is what the Torah is going to proceed to mention. Hey, Mark. Hey, Matt. Welcome. All right. We got our guys in. You see that? All right. And now we are balanced. Let's jump in to verse number 13. Take a look at what the Torah says, how as far as how the Jewish people should be counted. This they shall give. Everyone who goes through the counting, they should give half a shekel according to the holy shekel. So the amount that one should give is a half a shekel. Now, how much is a half a shekel? So 20 gerahs equal 1 shekel. Half such a shekel shall be an offering to the Lord. So the Torah gives us a bit of a description about which coin should be used. You know, you can imagine back in the day, the currencies weren't as established necessarily as the currencies that we have today. And even today, there's fluctuation. I mean, if you say it costs $1, that's great. And in America, we might have one understanding of that, but go to Canada, there's another dollar. Go to Australia, and there's another dollar. So depending on where you are, a dollar might mean something else and would have different value. So when we talk about giving a half a shekel, the Torah specifies, God says, this is according to the shekel HaKodesh, the holy shekel. In other words, the standard shekel, which is 20 gerah per shekel. 20 gerah was, again, an amount or a weight of silver. 20 gerah equal 1 shekel. So half that shekel should be the half a shekel that we're talking about, just to make sure that we're all speaking the same language and we're all on the same page. Again, for us, what do we know from half a shekel of the holy shekel? What do we know from 20 gerahs equals 1 shekel? All right, it's not our currency. You tell me 50 cents, you tell me a $1.50. All right, I'm with you. But then this was specific, and this was helping them understand which coin should be given. Maybe at a future artisan presentation, maybe we'll make a half a shekel. Maybe we'll mint our own Kabbalah coins. Hey, maybe we'll make some Kabbalah crypto. You never know. That seems to be all the rage with
Rabbi, I think it would be interesting to do a class on symbology.
Yeah.
Symbols. Yeah.
I mean, the whole Judaism is filled with symbology. I mean, like where to even start? I mean, it would be, I agree with you. It would be amazing. So take a look at this. The half a shekel according to the holy shekel, Rashi says, by the weight of the shekel that I fixed for you against which to weight the holy shekels. In other words, there should be a standard shekel. God says, I'm giving you a standard shekel amount. That is what is a shekel, and that's what a half a shekel is based on this shekel. So again, don't give me an American dollar, an Australian dollar, a Canadian dollar. I'm giving you what the shekel is, and this is the standard amount. And 20 gerahs is a shekel. So now God explains how much it is. All right. So Rashi says, let's take Rashi off and let's get back inside. Everyone, let's continue verse 14. Everyone who goes through the counting from the age of 20 and up shall give an offering to the Lord. The offering is this half shekel. That's what it means. This offering is not an animal, not flour, not wine. It's the same coin that we're talking about. Now, look at 15. The rich shall give no more, and the poor shall give no less than half a shekel, with which to give the offering to the Lord to atone for your souls. In other words, this is not a contribute whatever you want to build the Mishkan, to build the tabernacle. That was another donation. This is for the purpose of the census, for the counting. Everyone gave a half a shekel. It was not a lot of money, so everyone could afford it essentially. But the wealthy, don't give more. We're counting the coins. Don't mess up the count. Don't give me a bag of like 100 half shekels because you're feeling generous. Send that to the other department that's raising money for the other stuff. This is all about the count. And by the way, there's a deeper symbolism here as well. And that is every human being has two elements. There's our unique qualities, and then there is our common qualities, right? The unique quality is there's the rich and the poor. I don't mean literally, but I mean, everyone's got strengths and weaknesses. So somebody is more academic. Someone's more, emotionally connected. Someone's more spiritual. Someone's more, someone likes Kabbalah. Someone likes Talmud. Everyone's different. That's on one level. But then on another level, everyone's a half a shekel. In other words, everyone's value is the same. And when it comes to counting, the message is, when we count, Everyone counts the same. No one is weighted more or less. Everyone is the same half shekel. You might be wondering, why a half a shekel, not a whole shekel? What are you saying? Everyone's worth a half? There's also symbolism there. A half, yes, because you still need the other guy to get to a whole. In other words, each one of us on our own, we're only a half. We can't do it alone. We're not in this alone in this world. We need each other. And the idea of giving only a half a shekel symbolizes the collaboration that we're meant to have with each other, but also the sense of humility that I'm not there yet on my own. I need the other to help me get there, and I have to help them get there. And I'm being vague. Whatever get there means for one, that's what it means. So again, just to recap these few points, each Torah believes and teaches us that every human being is individual and unique and different and diverse and has their own set of qualities and challenges, each one individually. At the same time, Torah also emphasizes that we're all created from the same source and we all share the same infinite value. So when it comes to the other donations of the Mishkan that we read about a few weeks ago, when God asked for gold, silver, copper, and the tapestries and the wool and all that stuff. So when it came to that, everyone gives whatever they want. So that represents the diversity. So somebody might give gold, somebody might give copper, somebody might give silver. Everyone could give what they're inspired to give, and that represents individualism. This count, when we're counting the people, it touches on the essence. It's not about what I do, but really who I am. And who I am is godly and divine. And it's the same as who you are at the core, at the essence. So when it gets past the essence, other layers, everyone's different. But at the core of who we are, we're all the same. And that's what the census was made to evoke. In other words, what's the point of... honestly, we could have started from a different place. So let me shift, and I'm going to bring all the pieces together, but let me just pivot for a second. I'll ask you a question. Why did God request a census of the Jewish people? Can't God count himself? What's the point? Why does God need us to count? God's like, Moses, I'm not sure how many mouths we have to feed. Give me a number. Get back to me in a few weeks. That's not what's going on. The counting is not for God, it's for us. Because knowing that we're counted means that we know that we count, right? Being counted is God's way of saying, I care about you, and I care about you, and I care about you, and I care about you. I don't just care about all y'all. See what I did there? As a group, I care about you, and you, and you, and you individually. And since the whole purpose of the counting was to evoke within us, not for God, but it was a gift, it wasn't for God's information. It was a gift for us, for our benefit. And what's the message? You matter, you count, right? No matter what you did, what you didn't do, irrespective of everything else, you absolutely matter. Because it's about essential worth, everyone gives the same half shekel. Hope that makes sense. And by the way,
counting souls.
Counting souls. Exactly. Not counting accomplishments and not counting contributions and not counting skills and not counting education. It's counting souls. Very well said. And along those lines, another understanding of why it was a half a shekel is to evoke that a soul is only half because the other half is God, right? So the soul is really one with God, but it's really two halves of the divide, if you will, right? The divine half is above and the soul half is below. Does that make sense? Right? It's like the mirror image of its source. One other insight, just very quick math here. The Torah just told us that a full shekel is 20 gera. That was a weight, let's say 20 ounces. It was 20 gera was the weight of a coin, of one shekel. So how much is a half a shekel? If 20 is a whole, how much is a half? How many gera is a half? 10. How many powers of the soul exist in Kabbalah? You got it, 10. So Kabbalah says that yes, we're counting souls and the soul is giving its gift, if you will, or its gift, its representation So a soul of 10 powers is giving a coin of 10 gera as a representation. And yet it's not a full coin, it's a half. Number one, the humility to get along with others. I'm a soul, you're a soul, we can connect. But also, I'm a soul, you're the source, connect both ways. So it's lateral as well as, bottom up. Either way, the bigger point here is that we're counting souls, and the count was not for God's purposes, not for government, not for Moses accounting purposes. It was completely for our benefit. God says, you matter, you count. Like the elections, every vote counts, kind of what we're saying here. And there's no election, right? There's no candidates. Who's the candidate? No one. You matter. That's it. You have a voice, you have a soul, you have an identity, you have infinite value. That's the whole message here.
Harry, I've got to ask this question.
Go for it.
So I was writing some notes here. Is the evil eye really that stupid? In other words, oh, no, I'm not counting people, I'm counting coins.
Look, the evil eye is essentially not a magical thing. It's literally a begrudging that somebody might have toward someone else or something else that is successful. So for example, let's say you hear about somebody got a job promotion, and instead of feeling happy for them, let's say we think, oh, that's so unfair. Why did they get it? Why didn't I get it? They're always getting good stuff. I'm not getting it. And then on some level, a person might want them to not succeed in the new position, in the new promotion. I'm not saying this is a good thing. On the contrary, it's not a good midah. It's not a good trait. But is it possible that a human being at some point in time in history has seen someone else's success and not been thrilled about it, and looked at it with a negative eye? That's what ayin hara is. That's why, for example, in Jewish tradition, we don't call up a father and a son to the Torah back to back, even at a bar mitzvah. Why? Because we don't want congregants to say, "Oh, look at these guys, right? Look at this. They're dominating the Torah reading, or they're or in any way to." The idea is not to show off and not to boast, because it's not about humility, which is also a virtue, but it's also not evoking anyone's evil eye to target that blessing, if that makes sense. So counting large numbers could evoke an evil eye. That's what Balaam was trying to do. Balaam, right? Balaam, the evil prophet, was trying to arouse an evil eye against the Jewish people. God didn't let him do it, but he was trying to do that. He went up on a mountain to see the whole people, and then cast an evil eye at them. So it's not that the evil eye is foolish or is easily dissuaded, but it's kind of like we don't put the number out there. It's not meant for public. So everyone gave a coin, and the coins were counted. That's how they counted. They counted the coins. They counted the contributions. So did they publish the census results? I don't know. It's in the Torah, but it was like it's more of a donation than accounting. So are we tricking it? I'm sure there's a better explanation, and I don't feel like I'm fully answering your question, but I feel like I'm sort of talking about a little bit better understanding the evil eye, and maybe that can help, soften the question a drop. I don't think it's a perfect answer. I don't think it's a great answer, but it's some sort of perspective on evil eye. There's a lot to talk about on evil eye, but the general thrust is that it's not some sort of like supernatural magical thing. It's really practical, not wanting to do something that will immediately evoke a jealous response by someone else. That's kind of what it is.
But what's the difference? In other words,
I hear you. Your question is better than my
1/2 shekel, 2/2 shekels, 3/2 shekels. It's yeah.
No, I understand. No, the Torah says it's not about the half shekel versus the whole shekel. It's more about not counting directly the people versus counting the coins. So they not counting the people, we're counting the coins, the amount of coins. So you had 600,000 half coins that came in. All right. So we know that means that there were 600,000 Jewish males aged 20 to 60, which were the census head of household, however that was done. But it wasn't that we're counting directly the people. I mean, I hear the question. I don't know if maybe I'm sure there are commentators on it that give a better explanation, but that's my first approach on it. All right, let's jump back in to verse 16. All right, here we go. You shall take the silver of the atonements. And again, this word is used again and again regarding the half shekel. It's considered an offering of atonement. So it's take the silver of the atonements from the children of Israel and use it for the work of the tent of meeting, which answers the question, well, what do you do with the half shekels when they come in? Well, we're counting the coins, but then what do you do with them? So they're used also for the work of the tent of the meeting. They were ultimately, oh wait, hold on. I don't think I share my screen with you. That's awkward. There I am just reading verses and not sharing my screen. Sharing is caring. Again, verse 16, you shall take the silver of the atonements from the children of Israel and use it for the work of the tent of meeting. So that silver from the coins is used for the Mishkan. What was it used for? It was melted down and they used it to create the silver sockets that the walls of the tabernacle, the boards fit into. It shall be a remembrance for the children of Israel before the Lord to atone for your souls. Again, atonement, many times that phrase is used in this reference. Okay, one thing that's interesting is, just like we spoke about these coins being gifts of the soul and symbolic not of, what we do, but who we are. So likewise, their utility was the foundation of the Mishkan, the base, right? Not so glamorous, but the foundation is the base. It's the core of who we are. It's not glitzy. It's not shiny. It's not, whatever. It's not fancy schmancy, but it's essential, just like the essence of our being. So yeah, when we introduce ourselves, we say, oh, I do this and I do that, but that's all the other stuff. That's all the outside stuff. Maybe a little flashier, but who am I? I'm a child of God. I'm a soul. I have a divine soul. That's really who I am. So it was turned into those coins were turned into the foundation.
It's also interesting. I mean, it's noteworthy that modern Israel, uses their monetary system shekels.
And I believe we would have to look that up. You could probably just Wikipedia, Google it, look up Wikipedia. I would imagine that they named it that as kind of a throwback to old school. But it would be interesting actually to see how much of a gap was there between the last Jewish currency and the modern Jewish currency. Was it like 2,000 years almost, 1,900 years? It's possible. It would be interesting. I don't know then. I would imagine when the second temple was destroyed, that was the end of Jewish currency, I would imagine. But I don't have the exact historical details, but it's certainly an interesting thing. All right, here we go, verse 17. But wait, there's more. We're not done yet. I mentioned this a few weeks ago, actually. The wash basin, the copper wash basin. So God spoke to Moses, the Lord spoke to Moses saying, verse 18, you shall make a wash stand. I like that, wash stand of copper, and its base of copper for washing. So 2 copper things, a base and then a bowl on top that holds the water. And you shall place it between the tent of meeting and the altar. Oh, we saw that picture, right? Didn't we see a picture last week or the week before? You had the little building, the little hut, the tent of meeting, and then there was a round thing. And I'm like, oh, I think that's the wash basin. And then the altar outside of it, exactly, that's what it says. You shall place it between the tent of meeting and the altar. So it's outside the building. It's an open sky area, right? There's still a perimeter around it, but it's the open area between the building and the altar is the wash basin. And of course, well, you guessed it, you shall put water therein. You gotta have water for the wash. You gotta have water in the sink. This is before plumbing. By the way, I said before plumbing, but there were then also forms of guided irrigation, but that's for another conversation. Aaron and his sons shall wash their hands and feet from it. So this happened every day. Aaron, the high priest, Aaron, and his sons, the regular priests, should wash their hands and their feet from this wash basin. When they enter the tent of meeting, that building, they shall wash with water so that they will not die. Again, implying that if they don't, they would face a fatal end. Or when they approach the altar to serve, to make a fire offering rise up and smoke to the Lord. Also then, they shall wash their hands and feet so that they will not die. This shall be for them a perpetual statute. For all times, all generations, whenever you have a temple, gotta wash the hands and the feet. For him and for his descendants and for their generations. Before hand washing became super popular in the last year or so, right? Wash your hands. We had this, wash your hands and your feet before the holy service. By the way, I should just mention, this is also why even to this day, before we eat bread, we wash our hands. Before we do the ritual, before we eat bread, because we wash our hands. Why? What's the connection? So it says like this: we don't have an altar anymore today, right? We don't have an altar to make sacrifices, but we have a dinner table or a kitchen table where we eat food, and our food comes from animals or plants, like the altar was bring up. And just like an altar was about elevating those elements toward God, when we eat food, it becomes part of our flesh and blood, and then we do a mitzvah. So we're also elevating the other parts of creation up toward the spiritual space. So our tables are like an altar. And just like the Kohanim, when they approached the altar, they had to wash their hands, and their feet. But all right, but at least what we do is we wash our hands before we eat bread. Bread is considered to be the staple food. So if you're just grabbing a fruit or a vegetable, it's not a formal meal. It's not an altar meal, so to speak. So you don't have to wash your hands with the ritual hand washing. But if you have bread, hamotzi, then you definitely wash the hands beforehand, say a special blessing, and of course a blessing afterwards as well. But the point that I wanted to make here is the connection between modern hand washing ritual and ancient altar temple service. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Rabbi.
Yeah, Ray, go ahead.
So this is before Aaron's two sons
Yes.
were. Oh, okay.
But wait. But let me clarify. Good question, but let me clarify. This is still before the building has been even built. This is still God speaking to Moses about what should happen. So this is months before opening day. They passed away at the ribbon cutting day, on that day, when the temple was open for business for the first time. That day they passed away. So it took them, let me think. It took them, 1 second, at least 6 months to build everything. At least 6 months to build everything. So this is well before they passed away. This is in the instruction stage, where at least we thought the intention was that there would be one high priest and 4 sons who would be priests. As it turns out, on day 1 already it was only 2.
Yeah.
Let's continue, but good question. Let's continue. I'm sorry. What I mentioned about the hand washing is a deeper explanation of what it means that it's a perpetual statute for all generations. Even though we don't have a temple, but there is a symbolism that is done in perpetuity, if I'm saying that correctly, and for generations. We still wash our hands before we eat bread. All right, let's continue verse 22. Oh, we got to do this. I'm thinking of ideas. This is the incense. The Lord spoke to Moses saying, and you take for yourself spices of the finest sort of pure myrrh, 500 shekel weights. It's a lot of myrrh. A fragrant, I think it's a lot of myrrh, I don't know. A fragrant cinnamon, half of it, which is 250 shekel weights. A fragrant cane, 250 shekel weights. And of cassia, 500 shekel weights, according to the holy shekel, and 1 hin of olive oil. You shall make this into an oil of holy anointment, a perfumed compound, according to the art of a perfumer. It shall be an oil of holy anointment. Now, what do we do with this? This is not, by the way, the incense that was burned on the incense altar. This was spices and incense that was mixed into the oil that was then used for anointment, which is also kind of cool. I think it's kind of cool. I love how it's like according to the art of a perfumer. Like you got to get like the folks at Joe Malone or whoever's doing perfume. Like, folks, we need some expertise here. Let's get involved. Let's continue verse 26. And you shall anoint with it, with this oil fragrance mixture, with this perfume, essentially, you should anoint what? The tent of meeting and the ark of the testimony. Yeah, you heard that right. The ark of the testimony gets this anointing oil, fragrant oil situation. That's kind of cool. That's kind of amazing. And so the tent of meeting is the building. The ark is in the Holy of Holies, in the deepest space there. And the table and its implements is also in that space. The menorah is in that space. The altar of incense was in that building. Remember, there were 4 things total in the building. 3 in the outer chamber of the building. Not that, I hope it's clear, right? The building was the covered space. In the covered space, there were 2 chambers. The general chamber and then the inner chamber. The inner chamber was only the ark of the testimony. The outer chamber was the table with the showbread, the candelabra menorah, and the inner golden altar of incense that we spoke about at some point, I think. So all of these things should be anointed with the oil. But wait, there's more. Let's go outside the building. The altar of the burnt offering and its implements, the wash stand and its base, all of these things outside as well should be anointed with the oil of anointing. And you shall sanctify them so that they become a holy of holies. Whatever touches them shall become holy. In other words, these items, implements, vessels, whatever you want to call them, they will become sanctified to become Kodesh HaKodashim, holy of holies, so that whoever touches them shall become holy. Shall become holy. So if you touch them, they're in a state of holiness. And with it, not suggesting necessarily that a person touch it, but it's holy. And with it, with this oil, the same oil, the spiced oil, you shall anoint Aaron and his sons and sanctify them to serve me as Kohanim. We spoke last week about the oil of anointing for Aaron. And this specifies, well, what was the, remember we were thinking last week, what type of oil and what was in the oil? Well, we have the answer right here, right? Olive oil as a base and mixed with myrrh, cinnamon, cane, and whatever that is, cassia, I don't know, right? So these are the items. You throw it into some olive oil, you give it a whirl, the next thing you know, you got the oil of holy anointment. Holy anointment oil, Batman. All right, that's that. By the way, certainly we don't make replicas of the temple stuff. We don't make arks, we don't just like, let me make an ark. Maybe for educational purposes, fine, but not for recreation. So we wouldn't necessarily copy or replicate this formula, but it's just I think it's an interesting thing to keep in mind. All right, let's jump back into, hold on. Here we go. Donna says, the name cassia is inspired by an anointing oil made from the bark of the cassia tree and referenced in the Bible. Boom, it was an actual tree. I love that.
Similar to cinnamon, like a more intense cinnamon.
Nice. Honestly, sounds like it smelled pretty good. Yeah, who wouldn't want to get, so it wasn't like dripping oil everywhere, like, oh, great. But it was more like a perfume.
Essential oil.
Essential
Lavender.
oil and kind of like a perfume, yeah.
Yeah, like lavender essential oil.
Exactly. Without the lavender, with the cassia instead.
Yeah.
With the cinnamon essential oil. So, by the way, Rashi mentioned this last week, which we did not get into. The way they anointed the high priest was they started here, went up and down, like like that shape. Does that make sense? On the forehead, boom, boom, like that. Like an A, if you will, without the line across it. Or like Rashi says, like an inverted letter kaf. Like imagine if you drew the letter kaf, which is drawn, how do I, here, take a look at the Hebrew font. I'm going to show you a kaf here. Let's find one. Why can't I find one? Let's find one. I actually, there are plenty here. So here we go. I'm just highlighting one. Let me zoom in Let me drastically zoom in on this letter. This letter right here, this letter is the kaf, or the chaf. So you see how it's kind of, I mean, every font is a little bit different, but it kind of is like 3 sides. Imagine if you wrote it in more of a camp style, campground sign style. So instead of being like kind of rounded, it would be like sharp. You would start at the top and then go boom, boom. It would be like a triangle-ish type shape without the last wall of the triangle. And then imagine if you took that triangular like angle shape and you just flipped it instead of being the side at the top. That's what this shape is on the forehead, right? It goes up. There's one point at the top and it goes down on both sides, right? Boom, 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 boom. So like a sideways chaf. Anyway, there's the insight into that. I actually shared it on Shabbos at Shul, kind of insights into why it was done in that shape, but that's perhaps for another time, another discussion. Okay, let's get back inside. Okay, here we go. Where are we? Yeah. Let's do verse 30. I think we did it. Let's do it again. And with this oil, you shall anoint Aaron and his sons to sanctify them to serve me as Kohanim. Take a look at verse 31. Take a look. And to the children of Israel, you shall speak, saying, this shall be oil of holy anointment to me for your generations. It shall not be poured upon human flesh. And according to its formula, you shall not make anything like it. Well, in case we were thinking to make it for recreational purposes, it's literally telling us, do not make this same formula for casual, non-sanctified, sanctioned use. So the only time to use it is to anoint the Kohanim, the priests, or the items of the Mishkan, of the tabernacle, or the temple, but it's not meant for human flesh. In other words, it's not meant for just personal use. It's holy, it shall be holy to you. Any person who compounds anything like it, or puts any of it on an alien, how did they know we were going to Mars? It means someone who's not a Kohen, right? Shall be cut off from his people. So pretty severe warning to not replicate this formula. So although we mentioned in tantalizing terms how cool it would be to create this blend of perfumed oils and check it out, the Torah is saying, don't get any ideas about doing that thing. Let's continue. And now we have the incense formula. So that's called the oil of anointing. Speaking about fragrances, remember there was that incense altar that you burn the incense? Well, what's the incense? And the Lord said to Moses, take for yourself aromatics, namely balsam sap, onycha, galbanum, aromatics, and pure frankincense. They shall be of equal weight. And you shall make it into incense, a compound according to the art of the perfumer, while blended pure holy, and you shall crush some of it very finely. And you shall set some of it before the testimony in the tent of meeting, where I will arrange meetings with you. It shall be to you a holy of holies. And the incense that you make, you shall not make for yourselves according to its formula. It shall be holy to you for the Lord. In other words, this is a special formula for the incense altar to be burned there, etc. I'm going to tell you a great story from the Talmud in a moment. Any person who makes anything like it to smell its fragrance shall be cut off from his people. What? I'm not using it. I just want to try it out to see what it smells like. Nope. The Torah says, don't do it. It's not worth it.
How about arnica? Arnica is used for pain.
I don't think it's the same thing. I just hit a random link. Sorry.
Okay.
I don't believe it's that. It's not arnica. It's onycha. Although I don't even know if I pronounced it correctly. I don't know what this is. I mean, I'm out of my league here with the spice and aromatics. But I will tell you something. Question. Yeah, Mark, go ahead.
When my friend Jonathan Alexander was in Israel, he was able to buy, it was like an incense, a whole little set of what all the incense was. But somebody said to him,
he showed it to me. Yeah, he showed it to me.
But somebody told him that it shouldn't have been sold and he shouldn't have bought it. What's the story?
Okay, I have mixed feelings about it. I think I told him at the time that it's probably okay, because he did bring it over. It was basically like individual jars or containers with the individual spices.
Right.
My understanding is the issue is when you blend it together and you make it into a formula, right? Whereas if you have the individual items individually, I don't think I don't believe that that's a thing. But maybe because they're in proximity to each other, it's getting close to that. I don't know. I don't know. I'm sure. I would imagine it's been discussed somewhere. Pros and cons of that. I just can't imagine that it falls into the Torah's prohibition, because the Torah says the instance that you make, you shall not make it for yourselves according to its formula, which basically sounds like you shouldn't blend it together in the right formula. But that's not. I don't believe that is being done in that case, where you just put each one in a separate jar. I don't believe that is the. That's arnica. Yeah. I don't believe that that's the same thing. This is Onycha, Onycha.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Thank you.
But again, I'm not ich bin nicht kein Mumche. I'm not the expert here, but I don't believe it's the same thing. But Mark, getting back to your question, it's a very good question. I don't know that isolating each one would be the same thing. Now, if you're giving it to people as a kit for them to mix on their own, wink, wink, here you go. Here's the tools. I'm not saying you should make it and you should weaponize it, but you could if you wanted to. That could be getting a little bit into a gray area, but I don't know if that's the intention. I don't know that I know enough about the intention and whatever to know if it's, how, but I would imagine, I could see how somebody might say, stay away from anything getting close to it. I want to tell you a story though, in general about this, that the Talmud shares, and I haven't studied the story in a few years, so I could be, when it comes to stories they haven't heard in a little while, so the details could get a little bit fuzzy, but I hope I'll share this accurately because it's a true story. The Talmud says that there was one family amongst the Jewish people that had the tradition of how to make the Torah, this incense formula, because it's not. I mean, you can get the ingredients, but how you do it, the proportion, the ratio, and everything, how you mix it together, that's where the magic is, right? I mean, you can give somebody you can give Coca-Cola, the recipe for Coca-Cola, theoretically, but to pull it off, to get it right, it's more than just knowing the ingredients, even though, secret ingredient stuff. There's one family that knew how to do it, and it was their job to do it. Well, one day, they basically went on strike. They wanted more money to produce the incense. And so the sages said, we're not paying you. Or the temple committee, whoever, there's times of the temple, right? Basic Midrash. They said, we're not going to give you we will not negotiate we will not be extorted for more money. Not happening. And so they said, fine, then we're out. We're not doing it anymore. We need more money to do this. So the sages tried to do it themselves, or others tried to do it. And when this family did it, the smoke went in one perfect column. When they burnt it on the incense altar, it went in one column straight up, vertical column. And when they tried to replicate it, it didn't work. So they came back to the family and said, no problem, you got a deal, no problem. We used that in a course once upon a time regarding capitalism and the free market. And I believe the implication that we took from that story is that the government is not necessarily allowed to put a cap on the free market and say, no, you can't charge more than this, that, or the other. They were able, the sages ultimately paid them what they asked. And the idea is, look, if you can get it elsewhere, then you don't have to pay. That's capitalism. But to create an artificial cap is not necessarily a halachically kosher economic formula either. Does that make sense? Who would have thought that we would get into economy suddenly? But there you go. From incense, the next thing you know, we're talking about money. Donna, go ahead.
The Rabbi Schusterman had that same point in our class. That,
oh, nice.
Yeah, about no caps. It's not, yeah.
Did he bring the story about the
It
incident?
wasn't that story. They had the it was like the JLI. He had case studies.
Okay.
So he used the already supplied case studies.
Got it. For some reason, I remember some story, and I could be messing up some details because it's been a while. It's been like a number of years, but I believe there's something along those lines, which is an indication. the fact that the rabbis couldn't have said to them or didn't say to them, you have to do it and you're only allowed to get this amount of money, right?
It was something biblical. Yes, it was some kind of I think it was in the history. I don't recall exactly, but it was something necessary
something
for
similar.
religious services. Yeah.
Right, maybe something similar. Anyway,
Yeah.
either way, let's finish this reading and then we're going to close it out because I see it's getting a little bit late. So let's just jump back in quickly. That's the incense formula. There we go. Let's continue. How much more do we have? Oh, wow, we have a lot. Maybe we'll pause here and we'll pick it up tomorrow because this is already beginning a whole longer piece to it. And I think it's a good place to stop. This is beginning chapter 31. We're up to chapter 31, which is where God tells Moses who to appoint as the official lead architects, lead creators in the project. The two individuals will be Bezalel and Aholiav. Bezalel in verse 2 and Aholiav in verse number 6. Those are going to be the two, I don't know what you call them, like the lead builders. Not that they're making everything themselves, but they're really the ones that are doing a lot of the building, but also hands-on, making sure everything is done correctly. These individuals had a tremendous skill and talent, and they were the ones to be appointed. Moses, of course, oversaw the entire project, right? God communicated with Moses. Moses oversaw everything, but these two individuals were put more hands-on in charge of the rest, in charge of of creating everything that needed to be created. That's tomorrow. We'll get into that tomorrow. And and there's a lot more in this week to cover. So it's a big portion. We have, spoiler alert, we have the sin of the golden calf here as well. There's a ton of stuff to deal with. So, all right, great to see everybody. I want to wish you all a wonderful day. If you're not yet signed on to tonight, if you didn't yet get the email and you did sign on, either way, let me know. If you want to join, let me know. It's going to be incredible. Think Back to the Future. The DeLorean. Is time travel possible? Teleportation? Looking at this from a place of quantum physics and Kabbalah, it's going to be phenomenal tonight, 8 p.m., Rabbi Usher Crisp. Do not miss it. Be there or be square. Don't be square. Be there. All right. Thank you all for being here, and we'll see you tomorrow. Same bad time, same bad channel.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Rabbi.
Thank you.
All right. Good